Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you here again this week after the broadcast last week with Tomek Delega from the ECU. We had a great time together, a lot of people happy to take part, and I hope it will be the same today. So today I have two important guests with me again. So international arbiter Jirina Prokopova.
Good afternoon.
She is a member of the Arbiters Commission and in charge of titles. So she's the most important person today and will make a great presentation to us later on. And also Nebojsa Baralic, Secretary of the Commission. He will be our guest on the chat, helping making the connection with the questions and everything. And so I hope you have great time with us, that you learn a lot of interesting things, and that we will all together improve the quality of arbiters applications, because this week our main focus is about arbiters title. So the principle is to try to help you as federations, mainly federation administrators and people who prepare applications to FIDE, to prepare good applications, and also, of course, arbiters who are interested for their own career to get the best possible applications when they want to become a FIDE arbiter or an international arbiter. So if you were here last week, you remember I like some maps and figures and everything. So this time I put on the map all the federations, hopefully I didn't miss any, which have at least one FIDE arbiter or one international arbiter. So we have 171 all over the world. Almost all federations have internationally titled arbiters, and so we are doing our best to be present everywhere and to help you getting arbiters through trainings and also having more and more people skilled to organize and to supervise tournaments. So before we start with some concrete stuff, I would like to just remind about the process. What are we speaking about today? It's about federations working together with FIDE. So this process is about rating officer or Arbiters Commission submitting to our title office, mainly Bayra. So if she's watching us or following, hello to Bayra. She's doing a great job with the team in order to prepare the evaluation of the titles. So she receives the applications mainly by email, and then she has a lot of work in order to put everything on the FIDE rating server, which is our database. And then after that, our team is in charge to review the different applications. And this is not always easy because you know maybe that you have to provide 4 norms for an IA application, 3 norms for an FA application, and this is a lot of documents. We check if the people are properly licensed, if their tournaments are properly registered on the FIDE rating server, and that can cost a lot of time to Jirina and the team. And so today we are trying to help you reducing the time wasted on such processes. When something goes wrong, we need to go back to Bayra, FIDE titles, or even to the federation, and it costs time to everyone. So we want to improve this part. Once we are finished with the evaluation of all the different title applications, we prepare a report, and the report is then submitted to the FIDE Council for approval. So FIDE Council, mainly we have 4 times per year, some reviews which we prepare for the Council. We tried to have as few as possible mistakes or rejected or conditional applications, and I will tell you later how we wish to improve, because we had chosen a strategy which was probably not the most efficient because of short deadlines for the council. So, but we will speak about improvement a bit later on. This slide is very important about what is actually the quantity, the volume of work which we are facing. So this is just a graph with the number of arbiters title applications. So you can see that in the past, for those of you who are long time in chess, you may know that the FIDE Arbiter title didn't exist forever. So at the beginning of the story, we only had international arbiters. Then was introduced in light blue the FIDE Arbiter title, which is the first step of our international career as arbiters. And you can see that the curve is growing and growing and growing. So the more efficient we are in evaluating the applications, the fewer time we need. And I can tell you it's very, very hard to evaluate all those applications. So we are really, really seeking efficiency. Just, I made a little trick in terms of curve here, because we didn't have FIDE Council or Presidential Board with the former name in the end of 2019. So we just grouped all applications received before the 15th of November to the curve, and this shows quite a big increase in number, plus 17% of IA requests compared to the previous year, and plus 24% of FAs, which is overall 20% more from 2018 to 2019. So quite a significant growth in terms of volume. So now what can we really improve? So this is just a presentation. You have a lot of figures. I will only focus on those ones where we want to have a positive change in the future. So we wish to reduce the number of applications rejected and the number of applications conditionally approved. What does this mean? So rejected, basically the application is not complete enough, not enough norms, not good enough tournaments or things like that, so we can't accept them to validate a title. So those ones we want to reduce to the minimum. And conditionally approved is basically about quality of the application, like signatures missing or elements which Jirina will detail to us. A lot of things which can be improved with better checks. So better checks means saving time. So by reducing the number of conditionally approved, we count on you, basically. If the federation is checking thoroughly about the different elements, signatures, names, whatever, which is mandatory in an application, and it comes to FIDE in full, then we save a lot of time. You save a lot of time, and FIDE saves a lot of time. And also, of course, for those who are rejected, it costs money because the application fee is still paid. So if you avoid rejected application, then you save money. And that's always better to spend the money on development rather than on rejected application. So we will try to help you avoiding invalid applications and make it better for everyone. And I will just finish here before leaving the word to Jirina with kind of summary of this situation, like less is more. In our situation, we are trying to improve by having any actor possible spending as few as possible useless time. So on short term, we wish to reduce, of course, the number of rejected applications, and that will be a very positive thing for the applicants, of course, because they would have their title validated or immediately filtered by the federation. Also, this is a very, very, very important point, is we have a lot of requests where the people think it's better, okay, the text says minimum 3 norms, the text says minimum 4 norms, so I give 6. Then I have better chances to be received, to be successful. That's an interesting logic, but it costs a huge time to us, because if all 6 norms are good, no problem for us. But sometimes the problem is that they are not all good. So we need to pick among them the ones which are good, and it costs a lot of time. So more focus is really a key for us, if you can help in this area, to ensure better success in validating the norm. And also one of our targets is not a less, is really like a no conditional. we really want to be clean in what we send to the council. We are trying to send reports to the council which are final, with only accepted or rejected titles. No conditional, like if I see the report from March, I see conditional, but then was it validated by the next council in June or things like that? We want to avoid that, to be more transparent and clear in what we report. So also this is a point which is important. And we can fix it, I would say, still short term by reviewing. In the future, we wish also to improve things, to continue improving, and I hope that this session today, you consider it's a part of improvement, and it will help you, of course. We wish to avoid double work. So this is not directly related to you, but I thought it's interesting to share with you also our ideas and wishes for improvement on the FIDE side. So less double work. When I say double work, it means when you send to Baira your application, she has to input data, and we have also to do it on the arbiter side, because we make quality checks and we keep track of what was good, what was not good on the application. And basically we don't have a tool yet. So when we have more automation, it will save time for us and probably also for you when we have exchange, if you can also update things kind of in a self-service way, if we can reach this kind of target. Also, what is the cause? The root cause of having applications rejected is often that the regulations are not understood properly. Not because people don't know how to read, but because sometimes they are not clear. So we have the ambition to make the regulations, first of all, more clear. And also, on the other hand, to have better tools again, if we have on the FIDE website a kind of qualification of tournaments, like this tournament is valid for FA norm, this tournament is valid for IA norm. I didn't speak about categories, but the idea is the same about arbiters category. This tournament is valid for category B, etc., etc. Then it's much more transparent for everyone what I have. I went to that tournament and then I can get a norm. I went to that other tournament, I can't get a norm. And it would help a lot when preparing the applications on your side as well. And also last item, which is not directly related to the preparation of the application, but rather to the quality which we want to bring overall in the arbiters world, is that if you know, you have this IT3 document, which is basically a summary of people participating in the tournament, and all that, I guess we can also have them from the FIDE database based on the data which is already present there. But on the other hand, we would need from the chief arbiters who deliver norm to evaluate a bit more precisely the candidates, like, is he good with the pairing software? What is his level of knowledge on the laws of chess? How are his interactions with the participants, with the organizers, and things like that? Does he know how to use the clocks? So we want to bring some more skill-oriented norms in the future. So in the future, you would be expected to see changes in the forms which you are going to submit to FIDE. We don't know yet the date, but we are trying our best to make it come true as soon as possible in order to prepare the future. So that was my introduction. I don't know if we got already any questions from the chat, Nebojsa, or we transition to Jirina.
Only we have one mention from Mr. Sedvich. If you send one extra norm, you avoid rejection if something is wrong with one norm. I don't see why you need to check every norm received, only enough to validate the application. You spoke about them.
Yeah, that's true. If the application is very well prepared and you put all the good norms first, David is right. But if you imagine we have 5-6 norms and the first ones are not valid, so we had to review them. We had to identify that they were not valid actually first. So where we need help is that by better explaining to the federations what is a good norm, what is a good application, that they make the filter in advance. And then we don't reject because the application arrives valid. Okay. Jirina?
Yes.
Okay, I leave you the word.
Okay, so again, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jirina Prokopova, and I'm happy I can be here today with you. I see many familiar names in the chat, so hello to everybody. And as Laurent said, we came up with this workshop because we want to help you to be able to send good applications to us. But in the same time, our intentions are not 100% pure because it will also make our job easier. So it is a win-win situation. And at the beginning, I just want to mention that you have contacts for us, for me, for Nebojsa as a secretary. And in case you are not sure about something and you need to clarify something, it is always better to contact us before you send the application, so we don't have to send it back. And we are happy to help you and prepare the application. And if you will not find answers here today, or you will find some other problems later, we will be happy to help you via email, or if we see each other sometimes in the future, hopefully in the tournament. So don't hesitate to ask. Okay, Laurent, my presentation is on.
Yeah, it should be, yes.
Yes, so I will start. So we have 3 levels of arbiters. We have a national arbiter, we have a FIDE arbiter, which I will call FA, and international arbiter IA. This is something you surely know. In order to become a FIDE arbiter, you need to be national arbiter first, and you need to have a FIDE national arbiter license. How do you know which category are you, or which arbiter level are you? You can find out at the FIDE website. Also in FIDE Arbiters Commission website. If you look here, you can see on the left side there is an arbiters database. And Nebojsa here updates this very, very often, so you can rely on this information that is good, and you can make sure if you don't know, maybe you are checking title for somebody, maybe you don't know yourself, you can always look here and find out. So if you click on arbiters database, it will take you to this site, and here there is a list of arbiters at the top of the page, and if you click on that, you will see something like this. And here you have a list of all arbiters in the world who are licensed under FIDE. So if you are national arbiter level, it will say an NA. If you are FIDE arbiter, FA, and so on. You can also find out if you are active or inactive in the column flag. You can find out your category. And this column is for the category that you achieved. And the last column, which is called license level, is about what did you pay for and whether your achieved category and title is valid or not. It is sorted by federations, and you can easily find everybody anytime, not even only for titles, but if you are going to a tournament and you need to make sure that all arbiters are licensed, you can look at this document and you will find out very easily. Okay, the first thing you need to find out is regulations for arbiters titles. If you want to apply, you should know where to find it. You can also, of course, find it in a FIDE handbook. It is called Regulations for the Titles of Arbiters. It is under B6, And here you will find all the necessary information, and it is mostly covered by this presentation, but of course I will not speak about every article. If you are unclear on something, you can always find it here. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, here are all the necessary forms and attachments that you need for your application. So you can find here your IT3 form, but of course, very often you just generate it from the software that you use for pairing. For example, if you use a Swiss Manager, you can very easily find tournament report, and the form will build by itself, and you will just check that everything is correct and fill in some additional information, and your work is done. You have here your international arbiter norm report and FIDE arbiter norm report and everything you need. So the most important forms for us are these 3 or 5. IT3 is as I said, a tournament report. So for every tournament, you need this document. It doesn't matter if it's for arbiters titles or players title norms. You always need this document in our current situation to check that the tournament happened under these notes. Then you have FIDE Arbiter 1 and International Arbiter 1 and 2s. 1 is what we call FIDE Arbiter norm or International Arbiter norm. We will look into that in more detail. And FA2s and IA2s are something like an application where you list all the tournaments that you have, and you write personal information about you. You will get a stamp from your federation, and then you can send an application. How does FA and or IA looks like? It is basically the same. So for example, we will look at IA1, and at the top of the page, you see that also here are some pre-filled information. These informations come from the software that you used for pairing. If you fill in all this there, then you just generate this form, and you only need to add the information which are green. Or if you don't use such a software, then you just write down everything, of course. So you need to write down your name, of course, and your FIDE ID number, your date of birth, and place of birth. And here we want to know federation as well as the city. And then, of course, your federation. Then we have something that is called confidential report. And it is some kind of opportunity for feedback for every arbiter, because he will receive the norm from a chief arbiter who should be more experienced, and he is there to validate their performance. So the norm is not something that you will automatically get if you go to any tournament. It is something that you can earn if the chief arbiter feels like your performance was on the level of FIDE arbiter or international arbiter. And here he or she should write evaluation and tell you what you did good, what you did not so good, or if there is any space for improvement, or if everything was completely excellent, and that you are on a way to become a FIDE arbiter or international arbiter. It should be personalized. It shouldn't be copied from your previous norms, but okay, sometimes you don't have that much time, and we understand that, but please try to take this as an opportunity to think about evaluations and to speak about things that were right and that were not completely right. And it should be in English so we can understand it. In the bottom part, there is the most important point where you should choose whether your performance was required standard for the arbiter you want to become or was not. In order for this norm to be valid, the chief arbiter has to choose the first option and cross the second or delete the second or something like that. If he chooses the second or if he doesn't choose any, then the norm will not be valid. And then there is space for the chief arbiter to write down his name or her name and to sign it. And of course, some federation official from the country where the tournament took place should also sign it and should put a stamp on the form. And then the form is solid. Who can sign the norm? There is not always the situation is not so easy that just the chief arbiter is titled and you are a deputy chief arbiter or an arbiter, match arbiter, and they will sign it for you. For example, the chief arbiter is not titled, or you are the chief arbiter. So what to do then? In that case, you have the option to ask chief organizer, and if the chief organizer has a arbiter title, then he is in a position that can also evaluate your performance because he was present, he has the necessary knowledge, and he can evaluate your performance and give you feedback and sign that you are ready to become a FIDE arbiter or international arbiter. And if that is also not the case, can anything else be done? Well, some federations have some special system in place for this. For example, France is one of those federations, and maybe Laurent can tell us something about that.
Sure. So, yeah, we know that not every arbiter is in a position to be evaluated because it's maybe the chief arbiter. So in this case, our National Arbiters Council put in place a process, and I would encourage all federations to have something like this in order not to block arbiters from getting norms, even if they don't have the appropriate supervision on site. What we ask the arbiters in this situation is that they say in advance, they inform us in advance that they wish to have a norm from that tournament. First of all, of course, we check that the tournament is compliant based on the FIDE regulations, that they can get a norm from the level of the tournament. And then if we have the opportunity, we can send a supervisor who is a senior arbiter from the federation to evaluate him, interview the organizers, and so on. This is the super situation. When we can do it, we do it, but we can't always. If we can't, then we interview either players or organizer on the performance of the arbiter. We can also have an interview with the arbiter, and then it's the federation who delivers the norm. So it's the Arbiters Council who signs the norm. So in some case, you would have position, instead of chief arbiter, chief organizer displayed on the screen at the moment, you would have a director for titles from the federation at that level, and then validated by the federation. So you still have two signatures. But yeah, we focus really on the evaluation because, as Jirina said, it's important in the development of the arbiters when they get a norm that they get proper evaluation to understand where they are good and where they can improve for the future.
Yes. So. Again, the person who is signing the norm needs to be FIDE arbiter or international arbiter, because he's there to confirm that the performance was good and give positive feedback. So if he is not titled arbiter, then he's not in a position to judge this, because he cannot tell, basically.
Nebojsa, do we have?
So again, if you
sorry, yeah, but maybe before. Do we have questions?
Yes, I have selected a few questions so far. One first question: is there a way to add a license to play profiles rather than on PDF only? if I see correctly, FIDE answered on that question, and currently we started one project with IT FIDE office to prepare one unique single database, actually to merge FIDE rating system base and our arbiters database. After that, I think everything will be easy.
Yes.
That's one question. And we have a similar question from Mr. Jürgen Klungners and Fantasy Chess. In these forms, you cannot write. Is it possible to get a format where you can write? I think about FA1, FA2, and
Yes, and that's about you. We are publishing PDF, right? So yeah, probably it's a good suggestion to provide other kinds of format like Word documents for those who don't automate them from the pairing software directly. Yeah, good suggestion. Thanks.
Thanks. And Luke Cornet, must an IT free be signed by the Federation?
I will speak about that later. No.
Okay.
Okay. And Luke Cornet, one more question. So what about GDPR for date of birth and place of birth? We spoke with Mark.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had discussion with our GDPR specialists, and I don't remember about the exact conclusion from the discussion, but apparently from the information we had overall to be displayed, we didn't have specific constraints, but if the norms need to be updated, we will of course make them compliant.
And one more for now. What is the point of a norm form that says this arbiter is not ready for becoming an arbiter? They think about arbiter performance.
Yeah, that's a good question. Indeed, the main focus of the norm is to be a valid element of your application. So it means if you succeeded, of course, you will forward it to the federation, and they will forward it to FIDE, and you probably get the title if the application is valid. What can happen is, I mean, those norms, in a way, they should, as Jirina said, they should be a part of the development of the arbiters. They should be a tool for more senior arbiters to help their trainees to understand where they are. So it can, unfortunately, happen that the arbiter was not at a level at that time. So, of course, if the chief arbiter gives a norm and he selects option 2, and it does not do the job of explaining what is going wrong, of giving advice on how to progress, then I agree with you, Fantasy Chess is completely useless. The point is really to take it like a trainer-trainee, mentor-mentee relationship, where the chief arbiter is here to help the trainee to progress. And a negative norm where you say, okay, you were good in this area and that area, but that area still needs to progress and it's not at the level to become an IA. I think it's very good in the approach. Of course, it must be done in a fair way. I mean, if you stay the whole tournament with your trainee, your assistant arbiter, and you don't make any comment during the whole tournament, and only at the end you tell him, okay, you were bad, that's not very nice. So the idea is really that you coach him during the tournament, and if you see at the beginning that some things are not at the level, you try to help him or her to progress. And if you see appropriate progress during the tournament, maybe it's then valid at the end, while at the beginning it was not at the level because the person demonstrated progress during the tournament.
Yeah, anything else?
We have one more question from Alexander Prokhorov. Why some federations sign certificates?
Sorry, what's the...
Well, in my opinion, they are confirming that the tournament really took place, and because it is in their federation, so they confirm that the numbers check, that it really took place, and they know about the event and they register it, so it is not made up, for example.
Okay, we can continue now.
Okay, so just a quick review. At the top, you just write down all your personal information. Then you ask the chief arbiter to provide you some feedback, and then you need a signature from the chief arbiter and from the federation official. Also, you need stamp from a federation official, and then your norm is completely valid. Another form is IT3. This is the tournament report we spoke about. And the same as in the previous slide, here the black is what you get from the pairing software, and the green is what you should write down, just to be clear. It is good to add contact information to the organizers, so in case there is any trouble, we can contact him and ask about anything we need to find out. And then everything else should be pre-filled. But if you are filling it down yourself, you first of all have to make sure that you have the same information in your FA1 or IA1 and in IT3, because it's the same tournament. So be careful not to have different data, because then it looks like there is something shady going on. And here you just write down the tournament name and dates, place of and venue, rates of play, system, Swiss or round robin, on double round robin, and number of rounds, which is very important because there are some rules on how many rounds the tournament needs to have in order to be valid for norms. The second half of the form looks like this, and here are very important information about number of players. Again, there are rules about number of players or titled players. We need to know if it's possible to achieve norms in the tournament or not. So be very careful about having this information just right, and there is no any confusion. Then again, you have all the arbiters, chief arbiter, deputy chief arbiter, and all the other arbiters. There should be name and their FIDE ID number, so they cannot be mixed up with anybody else. And it is also good to provide some contact information for the chief arbiter. For example, an email address is the most straightforward option, probably. And these information should, of course, reflect the reality and should also reflect the information on the FIDE website. We will talk about that later. So again, the whole form looks like this. You have all the information about the tournament, so you can check that it is of the required standard. And then you have the list of arbiters and some contact information if possible. It is not necessary to include a signature of any federation official here, nor you need the stamp, but I think it is very good practice and it doesn't hurt. So if you have some federation official there, it looks better with the stamp, but we don't require it. Any questions?
No. If I see correctly, no.
Okay. And since we spoke about GDPR, there is a new form, but the only change was this. At the bottom, this text was added, and it is because of the GDPR. So just make sure that for the summary you have the new form and that this information is included there. And what FA2s and IA2s look like, as I said before, this is some kind of application for the title itself. So after you have all your norms and you want to apply, you download this form and you fill in all the information. So the same as before, you write down your personal info, where have you, when is your date of birth, and where did that happen, and your federation, and some contact information for you. Probably you don't have fax in these times, but fill in anything that is relevant for you. Then you should state something about knowledge of your languages. We are especially interested in the FIDE official languages, so it is not necessary to write down your native language if it is not one of them. And for FIDE Arbiter application, you should be aware that you should know at least one FIDE official language. And for international arbiter, you should know English in particular. So there should be no international arbiters who don't speak English. So make sure that you first of all speak some of these languages, and then you write it down, because we have to check for that too, because it is one of the requirements. And at the bottom, there is the list of all the events that you get a norm. So you just write down their name, where it took place, their dates, and when it was included in FIDE rating list. Then also the type of the event. Different types are Swiss system, round robin, double round robin, teams, and so on. So write down everything that is important. It doesn't have to be word from word as I have it. If you write just SS instead of Swiss system, then it's of course enough. Just make sure that it is there. And if you have a seminar there also, then some of these columns will be blank, but for FIDE Arbiter title, you need a seminar, so it has to be included here also. And at the bottom again, you need a signature from federation official. This person should be included in FIDE directory under your federation. If you open FIDE website and go to directory, find your country and see a list of people who officially work for your federation. And these are the people that are entitled to sign these norms. So if you, for example, if your information for your federation is not updated, make sure to contact FIDE and update these, so we know who to contact when we need to check something and needs your opinion about something and so on. Maybe Laurent would like to say something about this also, or not?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. So again, this is the whole document. You have your personal information. Make sure to mention the languages you know, and list all the events that you have norm from. And at the bottom, you just need a signature from your federation official and a stamp as usually. So then all this information needs to be consistent, and they need to be also included in a FIDE database. How can you check? You can find the tournament that you are in, and here you have all the information, and you can see that the chief arbiter was this person, deputy chief arbiter was this person, and so on. And if you want to use this as a norm, your name has to be there. So always check it before you submit the application. And if you were there present, but you are not listed on FIDE website, maybe contact your FIDE rating officer, and they can fix this so it is according to the reality. And also another option is just to find yourself on FIDE. And if you click on Arbiter Organizer tab, then you have here all the events that you are in listed. And you can see your position there, were you chief arbiter or just match arbiter or anything else. And here also you can see the period when it was included in FIDE rating list. So you can, this is very useful for creating your application, because you don't have to find one event after the other, but you just look here and you see the necessary information. So this is very important to have all the information consistent with each other, and to be included as well as in paper forms, as well as on in electronic database. So do we have any questions?
Yes, we have a few new questions.
Can an arbiter send an application himself directly to Arbiter Commission in case a federation refuses to do so? Well, normally the federation is in charge of all its residents, so normally you don't do this. You just send your application to your FIDE Arbiters Commission or your board, or if you don't have any FIDE Arbiters Commission. And this workshop is aims especially to those people who have to check all the applications before they are sent to FIDE, and they know how to check it and what are all the information that needs to be there. But also, of course, if you are just an arbiter who wants to apply, you should find all the information here also. But what happens if you have some problems with your own federation? Maybe Laurent and Nebojsa have some cases that actually happened.
Yes, in that case, the applicant can send email to the Arbiters Commission, and we will investigate it. Okay, we will contact the federation and arbiters, and according to Management Board FIDE, we will investigate that case.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. What about festival or several tournaments? Can it be counted as a norm or several norms? If two events take place in the same time, during the same time, you can use only one of them. For example, if you have, as was said, a festival, and you have some round-robin tournament which takes a week, and during that time you have also Blitz and Rapid, then you can choose only one of them because they are all happening in the same time in the same festival. Do you always prefer all dates in FIDE format? You can use any format of date that you prefer. There is no ultimate right answer for that. What do you mean by official languages? The official languages, that is something that is maybe mixed up last few years. Laurent, what are the official languages now? I think there is a...
So basically this part of the regulation is related to old FIDE regulations. So it relates to those 7 languages which are historically known as official FIDE languages. Doesn't mean it will stay like this for the future, but for the current interpretation, it sticks to the regulations which were into force at the moment the regulations for arbiters were published.
Okay, last question. What is the procedure for national rating officer to correct incorrect tournament registration? Well, the procedure is the same as when he sends the tournament to FIDE. He just also sends a correction. Because it needs to go through FIDE. We cannot have too many people working on one website. There should be some system. So FIDE has to approve it, and then they will change it. But he or she contacts the same person as before. Okay. Yes?
Yeah, the correction would go through ratings@fide.com. So Gennady Rakvalov, yeah?
Yes.
So if you would like to check if your documents are all correct and everything is in place, what are the things you should look for? Just to review very quickly. You have FA1 or IA1 and IT3 for every tournament. And so that's, for example, for FIDE Arbiter, that will be 3+3. And then you have one FA2 or IA2 as an application. Then the norms are signed by the titled chief arbiter, or if there is some special case, there are exceptions that we talked about. But normally, it should be signed by the titled chief arbiter. Then it is also you also need to sign a signature from a federation official and their stamp official. You need to be consistent and have the same data in IT3 and on your norm also, and in your FIDE database. You need to have all the norms with the positive feedback, so they only then are valid. So you have again all the forms for every tournament that you are applying, and all your personal data are correct. So you can check that. IT3 contains correct tournament data. There are FIDE IDs of arbiters, that is very important, and there are some contact information. FA2 and IA2 is consistent with FA1 and IA1 and with IT3. So same data everywhere. FA2 and IA2 is signed by a federation official, and there is an official stamp. Also, it contains all personal information and languages. So don't forget about languages. And lastly, your application contains all the tournament information. So fill in all the cells. Don't forget about where it was when it was included on a FIDE rating website and so on. And lastly, you make sure that you are personally included in the database. And that's it. Then if you check all these boxes, then your documents are correct. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yes, you can see.
Can one tournament be used for two different applications? Let's say I am D, I have enough for C, so I do it. I do another B tournament. Can I use the C tournament again? Well, we are mostly talking about title application. And for international arbiter, all the norms must be new ones. So you have to achieve them as FIDE arbiter. But for categories, maybe Nebojsa can tell us.
I think the practice is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we can speak about the future. Currently, the
Yes.
categories, they are like one big bunch of 5 years, and we could see some people jumping from category D to category A, and there is wide consensus that this is not the best way to ensure a proper progression and learning for arbiters. So what we will introduce is like step-by-step logic, which is similar as FIDE arbiter first, then you get norms to become international arbiter. So you would have first of all your FIDE arbiter title, then IA title, then moving to the next category and C, B, A, step by step. Also with some programs from the commission to make sure we support the arbiters to progress in a personal development way, if I can say this this way. That is not just we want to stop just counting tournaments. Basically, that's the logic we have. As we spoke earlier when we spoke about evaluating arbiters to get the norms, we want to bring more added values to the arbiters, that they grow and develop themselves with the experience.
Okay, last question. What is about Swiss normal tournament and Blitz, which are at the same place, but Blitz takes place at a different time? This was possible in the last years. Well, that is exactly what I meant. Of course, that the Blitz or the Rapid takes place in a different time because you want the participants of the tournament to be included in the tournament also. But we are looking at the dates. And if it is part of the same festival, then you can only use one of these. So at the beginning of the regulation, you have this important table. And here, it can be useful for you as a chief arbiter. For example, if you are at some tournament and you want to know how many norms can you give for that event. So if you need that information, you look at this table, you find the right line. Let's say it is international Swiss, so the third line. Here you can give one norm per 50 players. So if there are if there is 100 players, you can give 2 norms for this tournament. But if there is a third arbiter who also needs a norm, it is not possible to give another. And for example, if you want to apply and you want to know how many of these types of tournaments can you use in an application, you also just look in this table. For example, if you have a Swiss national championship, you can use only 2 norms for like this. So if you have 3 norms from final of your national championship, you can only use 2 of those for your application for FIDE Arbiter or International Arbiter, and so on. So you can always find this table and make sure if you are not if you don't know what are the limits and what are the different formats and levels. So everything is here listed. And here, finally, what are the requirements for FIDE Arbiter and for International Arbiter? For FIDE Arbiter, you need to have national arbitral license. And other than that, you need to be at least 21 years old. And for International Arbiter, then, you just need to be FIDE Arbiter. So, of course, in the previous time, you already are 21 years old, and you have to have some kind of license. For FA, you need to have sufficient knowledge of at least 1 official FIDE language. And for International Arbiter, you have to know English, and you should also know some chess terms from other official languages. And finally, what about the norms? That is the most important thing that we want to learn about. For FIDE Arbiter, you need 3 norms from federated events. If it is national, it needs to be either individual finals of individual adult championship. So basically, men championship. If it's only women's championship, or there is some other restriction, if it's junior championship, youth championship, nothing like that. Only a final of the highest championship you have, where everybody can compete. Or it is the team championship, so your highest league or your highest team competition. And if it is an international event, then you need at least 2 federations for FIDE Arbiter. And of course, you all know that for FIDE Arbiter, you also need FIDE Arbiter seminar. You need to go there, you need to pass the exam, which is to achieve at least 80%. And for IA, there is no seminar for the time being. You need 4 federated events. It is the same for national championship, but it is different for international. In order for events to be listed as international for International Arbiter, you need at least 3 federations. Any questions? Is there any intention to reduce the age limit for the IA title from 21? I think 18 is considered an adult in a lot of places. I don't think so, but maybe Laurent can expand on that.
Yeah, for the moment there is no question of changing the age limit for the arbiters.
Yeah. Another question, festival has 3 tournaments, A, B, and C. Together they have more than 150 participants for IA1. Is this okay? Individually, each tournament has less than 150 participants. No, I think this is not acceptable. What constitutes a national championship? Anything considered a national championship by the federation, or only the individual championship, open and women? Well, as I said, it needs to be the highest national championship you have. It can be round robin, it can be individual, it can be open, it can be some final. It can be, for example, there is qualification in Swiss, and then there is the finals in round robin. Then you can only count the final round robin. Are rapid and blitz tournaments equivalent to standard for the purpose of norms? I mean, standalone rapid and blitz, not as part of a festival. We will speak about that in a bit, if I understand the question correctly. You can use 1 norm from which is rapid or blitz, and it also can be your national championship. For example, you can use 2 national championships. So if you have one in standard chess and you have one in rapid and blitz, you can use the exception that you can use one rapid or blitz norm, and it can also be national. And for international arbiter, the rapid and blitz has to be world or continental event. So moving on. Of course, what did I not mention? These are also requirements for FIDE Arbiter or International Arbiter, and you should show these things when you are achieving the norms. But here we are just talking about the application, so we will forget about it for a while. But these are the things that you need to demonstrate, and that is why there is some evaluation at the norms. So we know these things are something that you are good with, and you can qualify. So for FIDE Arbiter, what the norm should look like. If it is a federated event, we said before, you need at least 2 federations. And if it is a round robin, you need at least 10 players. So less than 10 players, not valid for FIDE Arbiter. For double round robin, it's 6 players. And for Swiss, it is 20 players. That is not very high number, but of course in some federation there are not that many tournaments. There are not there is no big Swisses as we call them, so 20 is some kind of compromise. And also counted as norm can be FIDE Arbiter title of the IBCA and so on. And you can also count one norm if you have been a match arbiter at the Olympiad. That can happen to you, for example, if your federation is organizing the Olympiad, then some national arbiters are invited, but otherwise I think it is very hard to get to the Olympiad and be a match arbiter if you have no title. Then, as I said before, you can have one federated rapid or blitz. So not rapid and blitz, rapid or blitz. And it needs to have at least 30 players, and it needs to have at least 9 rounds. Also counted as a norm is the highest division of national team championship. But in that case, it needs to be played at least on 4 boards. At least 60% of players need to be rated, and it needs to have at least 5 rounds, or it can have more rounds, but the arbiter needs to be there for at least 5 rounds. So, for example, if you are, it's some kind of league, and you are appointed, you need to be appointed 5 times during 1 year, then you can achieve a norm in such event. So, questions? Why is that non-acceptable? Can you please explain? Arbiter was engaged in all 3 groups and dealt with 150 plus players at the same time. Trick question again about the big festival. Okay, I think there needs to be some rules, and this was designed this way. We were not there when they came up with these rules. Maybe Laurent knows something about the reasons it was set like this, or
I think there is a mix in the mind of people asking questions about the number of players. For the titles, as far as I know, we only have limits about 100 players, right? The 150 yes. is about categories, and it only speaks about 150 players in Swiss, like single Swiss, or festivals, without mentioning the size limit. So I'm giving a trick to avoid category C. But
the question is, if those people are spread over more tournaments, they are not included in one. Why it is also not acceptable for a norm?
Mm-hmm.
If you have 20 in one, 50 in the other, and 70 in the third one, you are doing a similar job, but it is not valid for norm. So why is that?
I think it's valid for a norm, isn't it, Nebojsa? In some cases, in the applications, we get one norm, and we get a few federating server links, which are actually the same. The same tournament, for instance, if someone is sector arbiter in a youth tournament or something, it can be grouped, yes. But what is important, administratively speaking, what is important, especially nowadays, I mean, when we see in the chat some comments about old practices, new practices, old forms, new forms, that's absolutely true. I mean, the forms, we haven't renewed them fundamentally, but at the moment they are a kind of very old document. And one of the important elements which should be on the form, which would help a lot, is the tournament ID. The tournament ID which we have on the federating server. Because sometimes we need to dig on the server to find what is the tournament, because the arbiter is missing there, etc. So it's very complicated. So if on the norm we could soon change the format and include the tournament ID, that would be a good improvement, I think. And also the fact to put 2 or 3 different ones which make the festival, I think this is also a best practice. Some people, when they apply, they put it on the FA2 or on the IA2, which helps a lot.
Okay, so that's a good news. You have another option how to get a norm. And moving on to the next slide. What are the other additional rules about FI application? You need to have 2 different formats. Swiss, round robin or double round robin, or teams. That is also a different format, even if it's individual, even if it's Swiss or even if it's a round robin, teams are something different. There is one exception. If you want to include only Swiss tournaments, one of them needs to be international federated event with at least 100 players, at least 30% of them need to be rated, and the tournament has to have at least 7 rounds. So we call them big Swisses, and we consider it that the event is so significant that then this rule doesn't apply. All events in your application need to have 7 rounds. Or if that is not the case, there is an exception that one of them can be 5 or 6 rounds, but all the other ones at least 7. All these norms need to be achieved in a 6 years period, and your seminar norm can't be older than 4 years. There will be some adjustments about this year. We will prolong norms from previous years because, for example, if somebody achieved 3 norms already and was supposed to achieve the 3rd one this year, but thanks to the coronavirus situation, he was not able to do that. We will make sure that it will be possible next year, and we are still working on the right wording for this. But don't worry, if you are one of those people, there will be some solution. And your application cannot be submitted later than for the 2nd Congress after the latest event on your list. So don't wait too long. If you have your norms in order and you can apply, do it, and don't wait for anything. There are also some waiting periods. You need to apply 60 days before the Congress or the board, and you can do it later, but there is always some surcharge. So do it as soon as possible. Question?
And maybe we can
the arbiter?
We can just specify that, okay, in the first part of the presentation, Jirina showed us what is very important to check individually, document by document. But this slide is very important, and probably the next ones as well, when speaking about IAs. That's very, very important that you check that the proper mix is present in your application. And in case there is a piece of regulations or anything that you don't understand, it's very good that you anticipate by contacting us. So as Jirina said herself, or Nebojsa, in order to anticipate problems. Better asking if you have a doubt at the beginning, and we help you understanding if this or that tournament is valid in the mix, rather than just submitting and then risking a rejection.
Yeah, okay, so there was one question about the COVID situation. I already said that, so moving on. Here I have a checklist for your FIDE Arbiter application. What are all those things that you need to make sure of before you apply? So you have your National Arbiter license. You have a norm from a seminar not older than 4 years. You speak a FIDE official language and you included this information to your application. You have 3 norms from tournaments. They all fall within a 6 years period. For all of them, you have FA1 and IT3 forms. There are 2 different formats included in your application, or one of them is Big Swiss. All the tournaments have at least 7 rounds, and if not, only one of them has 5 or 6. If there is a Blitz or Rapid tournament, there is only 1 in your application. If there is a national championship, you have only 1 or 2, because 2 is a maximum. If it is an international event, there are at least 2 federations for every of these events. If you were an Olympiad match arbiter, you include only one of those norms to your application. If you have a Swiss tournament, it needs to have at least 20 players, 20 or more. If you have round robin, you need at least 10 players. If you have some double round robin norm, there needs to be at least 6 players. You are also older than 21 years old. You can apply before you are 21 years old and your application can be conditionally approved, but your title will not be awarded sooner than you will become 21. And you have your application FA2 prepared. So these are all the things that you need for your application. And then you are ready to send it to your federation. Your federation will consider it, and if it's in this state, they will approve, probably. And they can send it to FIDE, where it will come to us, and so on. So okay, are there any questions? Could an anti-cheating arbiter at the Olympiad count as an FA norm? Yeah, for sure. Anti-cheating is just as valid for norm as any other thing, so no problem with that. Is it possible to have one FA norm count and consider it in IA title? No, we will speak about that also. So for IA tournaments, for a tournament to be valid for norm for international arbiter, it needs to be, for example, the final of national individual championship. We are talking adults championship, men, open, or some finals. Again, only 2 of these can be included in your application. All official FIDE tournaments and matches. How can you know if your tournament is FIDE official? You can look into the official FIDE calendar. So, for example, if you are chief arbiter of category under 18 in European Championship or any other continent, and there is less than 100 players, so it would not count because it is not Big Swiss. It is still official FIDE tournament, so it counts as a norm. All international tournaments where FIDE title norms for players are possible. So all round robin or Swiss tournaments where there is enough titled players are valid for international arbiter norm. Then we have the Big Swiss, international federated event with at least 100 players of whom 30% at least are rated, and the tournament has at least 7 rounds. All official world and continental rapid and blitz. So again, you can have one rapid or blitz norm here, but it can only be continental championship or world championship of anything. Doesn't need to be adult. It can be youth, junior, women, anything. And again, as with FIDE Arbiter, as norms, FA title or IA title of the IBCA is counted, or if you are again match arbiter at the Olympiad, then it is counted as a norm and you can only use one of those. For your international arbiter applications, there are very similar rules. So again, two different formats, same exception, but this time all the events need to have at least 9 rounds, and the exception is for one that can be 7 or 8. Again, they all need to fall in within 6-year period, and it cannot be submitted later than for the second congress after the latest event. And here are some additional rules. They need to be different than your FIDE arbiter norms, because all have to be achieved with FIDE arbiter title already awarded. So if you are waiting for it, you already sent your application, you are as an arbiter somewhere, and you would like to count it as a norm for international arbiter, it is not possible. You have to wait until your title is awarded, and then you can count it as a norm. And you need a signature from at least 2 different chief arbiters. So if you have your favorite chief arbiter and you want to go to every tournament with him or her, and you want only them to sign your norms, you need to have at least one other for your international arbiter application. And here again, there is a checklist. Very quickly, you already have your FIDE arbiter title. You speak English, and you know chess terms in other languages. You have 4 norms from tournament, which you have achieved as FIDE arbiter already. They all fall within a 6-year period. For all of them, you have IA1 and IT3 forms, and they are all correct. There are 2 different formats. So, for example, round robin, and Swiss, double round robin, teams, and so on. Or one of them is Big Swiss. All the events have at least 9 rounds, and if not, only one of them has 7 or 8. If there is a blitz or rapid tournament, you have only one, and it is world or continental championship. Otherwise, it would not be valid. If there is a national championship, you have only 1 or 2, and if it is international event, there are at least 3 federations included in the tournament. If you were an Olympiad match arbiter, you have only 1 such norm. Shouldn't be a problem. If the norm is from official FIDE event, you make sure that the event is included in a FIDE calendar. And if it is not official, but some other double round robin or round robin, it has to be such event that title norms are possible there. And if it is some other Swiss, not official FIDE event, not an Olympiad, and so on, again, title norms must be possible there, or it is one of the big Swisses. You have at least 2 different chief arbiter signatures, and you have your application prepared. That is all. Any questions? The 1-year extension will also apply to allow an arbiter to stay active and to allowing lecturer to stay active. Yes, I think it will apply to everything from titles through categories to lecturers to activity of arbiters, but it is not approved yet, so I cannot promise you, but it is being prepared. And match knockout cap system doesn't apply. Well, that is a good question. If it is an official match, then yes. And otherwise, I am not sure. Maybe Laurent knows?
Yeah, basically, in general, it's written Swiss or round robin, which are the most standard. But on let's say on unusual systems, it would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I mean, if you have a very big knockout with 256 players or something, it's different from a knockout starting in quarterfinals, right? So we need to take them on case-by-case basis. We have a question from David Sedgwick. what if your FA title was due to be approved, but the relevant meeting is cancelled or postponed? It seems harsh if that invalidates an IA norm. Maybe this is a good opportunity to specify how we work. We never work with Congress dates or with PB dates or council dates. We always take as a reference the application date. So if the person applies in September and the next meeting is 6 months later, okay, it's sad about the actual validation, but the date taken into account is September. So there is no, in no case you would miss your title because of a meeting being cancelled. You would miss the title if you apply too late. And in this, we are really strict. I mean, when Jirina spoke about 4 years, 6 years, etc., those days, they are really strictly followed. So that's why she said earlier, don't wait too long after your last norm to apply. Otherwise, it could be too old and rejected.
Yeah. So last but not least, there are some fees. So if your application is good and is approved by the board or by the Congress, then your federation will receive a request from our commission that you need to pay the fee. So what are the fees for national level arbiter? It is 20 euro for and then you have to you only pay the difference, right? Every time for the license, and you also pay extra for the title, and that is valid for life. Unlike, for example, with the trainers, they have to validate it every few years. But here, you have it for life. And if you are, for example, category B, IA, and you want to become A, then you pay only the difference, which is 100 euro.
Jirina, one request. Can you share your international arbiter checklist again on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So now it's time for more of your questions, because that is everything that I wanted to include in my presentation. If you want me to go back and explain something further, I will be happy to. And if something was not clear, or if I said something too quickly, please don't hesitate to ask. And together with Nebojsa and Laurent, we will be happy to answer anything.
Of course, for any help, if you have some questions, you can use our email addresses.
What does it mean, 3 federations included in the tournament? It means that you need to have players at least from 3 federations. So probably the hosting federations and 2 others. Doesn't matter how many players, just need to be included there.
Okay, maybe as we can get some extra questions, I have a question for you, Nebojsa and Jirina. Also, in order to help understanding what is sometimes going wrong, what in your memory is the most challenging situation? What is the case? What are the cases which are happening the most often about things which lead to rejecting the application, or requiring exchange with the federations to ask them, please complete this or that and make the application better?
I think, for example, federation official signature is something that is missing very often, and then we have to send we cannot approve the application. We have to send it back to the federation and ask them to please include the signature, all these forms, and so on.
I think that cooperation between arbiters title team and all federation, it's very important to this process. For example, last time, during the last review for the FIDE Council, we had 19 conditional applications. After that, we contacted the federation And in a very short time, we got feedback. And thanks again to everyone who participated in that process, and thank them for their understanding. After their additional information, the number of conditional approved dropped to 3, only to 3. And that's very important. I hope in the future this process will be make big progress. Of course, when we finish some changes in the regulations, and we will try to help everyone, to all arbiters, to all federations, and that's our basic goal.
Okay, maybe I should go back to the question from David Cedric, because on the chat there is an exchange with Jürgen Klunos, and probably I misunderstood the initial question. My reasoning was about when you submit an application for one title, you won't lose that title due to a congress or meeting being postponed, of course. What Jirina explained and what is written in the rules is, of course, that in order to achieve an IA norm, you must have the FIDE Arbiter title. So in this case, yes, if you had everything to become an FA and you didn't become an FA, then you can't take the tournament for a norm. An alternate way to do is to propose some validations of title by written resolution, which happened in the past already. I think this is one of the tools which we can use, but the reference for the next title is, of course, to reach the previous title first. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, 24 is the one I just answered.
25 is easy. If you want to pay your license, you can contact us, and we will provide all necessary information from FIDE account office to you.
Okay, what else do we have as questions, Nebojsa? Do we have in the chat?
I'm watching now. Please, you can 26.
Okay,
now.
please answer the question posted earlier by other participants. The national championship event, like category U9, 11, 13, is considered for FAIA norm. So,
No.
I like to say yes and no. The thing is that it is not considered because of the fact it's a national championship under 9 and so on. What Jirina explained to us was that it's the top level championship. Oh my god, we are losing the... I think my network is too bad at the moment. I think that the YouTube is... sorry for the inconvenience. I think that the YouTube video is a bit blocked because of my network at home. Sorry for that. So that tournament would not be qualified as a norm because it's a national championship, but if it's big enough to be in one of the other categories, then it would be okay.
Club tournaments with all players from the same federation that are federated are valid for the FIDE application or not. Well, there is the exception that the highest division of your national league can be used. So even if you don't have any foreign players there, you can use it for FIDE Arbiter application, yes. But there are some restrictions, as I mentioned before. 60 days publishing time on website and rush procedure if the last norm is less than 60 days before a congress. Yes, that's what I exactly wanted to talk about some more. You should apply at least 60 days before the Congress. If you apply later, there is a 50% surcharge. If you apply during the Congress itself, there is a 100% surcharge. But if you achieve your last norm during this 60 days period, the surcharge can be waived and you don't have to pay it because you couldn't possibly send it sooner because you didn't have the norm before, and you can still apply in time for the next Congress. So in that case, it can be waived. For example, if the Congress is in September and you have all your tournament norms already, and at the end of August you attend a FIDE Arbiter seminar and you are successful, then you can very quickly send it to your federation and they will send it to us, and you don't have to pay the surcharge. And again, if it is for FIDE Arbiter, then you need to wait for the title to be actually awarded. And only then you can get more norms as for international arbiter. If you don't have the title yet, it wouldn't be valid.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, Nebojsa, in the chat? I don't know about the quality of the stream, if it's still okay or not. I'm experiencing a few technical issues here. So in the checklist, I read Big Swiss. What it means? It means those tournaments where you have a large number of players. Swiss.
At least 100 players, at least 30% of them needs to be federated, and the tournament needs to have at least 7 rounds. Then we call it Big Swiss, as I said on the previous slide.
Okay. Is there a deadline for norms to be submitted initially? For example, how long after an event is over should the arbiter give the norm to the federation official for approval? For that one, I would say federation official for approval, the earlier the better. I mean, but it will depend on the way your federation is organized, actually. But in principle, you do it at the moment of the tournament. That's the best. You finish your tournament, you get the norm, and you make it validated by the federation. Actually, this is the role of the main arbiter, of the chief arbiter, as well as for the norms for players, IM norm, GM norm, etc. The chief arbiter should send them to the host federation, to FIDE, to every administrative bodies which are involved in the process, just after the tournament. So this should be done very quickly. It also avoids losing the documents or anything. When will be our next meeting? We haven't planned it yet, but I think it's a good opportunity to be online and also to introduce to you the different people from the commission. So this week we are with Nebojsa and Jirina, but we have also an education team. We have people dealing with regulations and arbiters manuals. So the various areas of the commission need to be advertised and be in contact with you. So we will for sure be back soon with other topics to share with you, as there is a big interest, and we thank you for being present with us and sharing questions, interest about the subject. Any other questions? Did you answer 29 or not, Jirina? I didn't pay attention.
No. It is not exactly a question. Some arbiters are working more than 10 years, but still today not completed IA title due to not given a chance by federation or partially. In this case, FIDE can help them. Well, if for arbiters from countries where there are no such tournaments at all, there is one exception where they can apply directly to FIDE Commission. Maybe Laurent can say something like that. happened during his time in the commission?
Well, in general, we try to have federations help their own arbiters. I mean, if we have an arbiter complaining that he can't get opportunities, we try just to connect them better. Of course, we know that in some cases there can be some conflicts, but the main point of FIDE is not to interfere with conflicts, but we always try to help that things go more smoothly between arbiters and their federations, because both arbiters and federations are at the service of chess, and that's the most important, as we have the FIDE motto against una sumus. So of course there exist conflicts there anywhere in the world, but if people can continue developing themselves, that's very important. So we have some call for suggesting our colleagues from QC to doing the same kind of seminars. We will forward the request to them, of course. I think it's a good opportunity to be in touch with federations, with arbiters, in a regular basis indeed.
Maybe we should mention that there will be a refresher seminar for title arbiters planned, and there will be a section about norms. So you can learn some interesting information there if you want.
Yes, but this won't be a webinar like this, so the number of people will be quite limited. And this is a good point from Jirina. As part of the development we want to bring to the chess arbiters is introducing some formal refresher seminars with predefined curriculum and content, so that we help again the arbiters keeping their fitness, if we can say it this way, that they stay up to date with practices, with regulations and things like that, in order to support once more in a different way the quality overall we have in the arbiters world. If we have a question in the future, who can we ask? You can always contact the commission through the secretary, or depending on the topic, if it's for titles, also include Jirina, of course. And of course, we would expect that you can also ask your federations. And if a federation does not know, we interact also with federations, of course.
There is a question, what to do when a federation is late in sending signed and stamped norms to the arbiters and national federations? I think you said that in that case we can evaluate it later when it comes, or what is the procedure?
I didn't really get the question. One federation sending...
In case the federation is at fault, that they received the application but they didn't send it in time.
I would say in this case it's their matter. We can't deal with all the whole world. I mean, maybe the arbiter will be angry at his own federation, but yeah, it's their business.
And in case of surcharge, maybe they should pay it. You have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Go. And what does it take to be category A or B arbiter? Well, there is a special regulations for categories of arbiters, which we briefly mentioned, and there are some kind of norms also. It is a bit similar, but there is no such procedure as here. And for now, for example, if you are FIDE Arbiter D, you need to work as FIDE Arbiter for 5 years, and you need to be included in tournaments of some required standard, which is listed in the regulations. And then when you become C from D, you can continue to B, and the conditions are harder to fulfill, and so on. And at the end, if you are A, that's the highest, there is nowhere to go from there.
Yeah. I apologize. I think my connection is becoming more and more unstable. So if we want to politely quit our audience, I think it's better that we call it a day. Of course, you can send us questions if you have, and we may publish them on our website with some answers. So before we leave, I would like to thank a few people about this particular topic of titles. First of all, our honorary chairman Takis Nikolopoulos, who helped us last year in understanding, because we took the opportunity today to explain you about that. But first of all, we had to learn, and this was not that easy. And also a very important person in this topic, which we mentioned already during this meeting, is Bayra Marilova. She's from FIDE, and she's doing a great job in helping, in always in a friendly way, getting in touch with federations or with us. So this is a very good help for you and for us in this area of titles. And of course, last but not least, I would like to thank very much Jirina for the presentation and for the work about titles, Nebojsa for the huge work last year in setting everything up with the new team, and also we have a counselor in the team who is called Leandro Plotinsky, who helped us and will be more and more involved in this area in the future. So I hope that.
Oh, thank you, Laurent, for creating these opportunities. We can be here and we can interact with people, and I hope there will be more in future.
Yes, definitely. This won't be the last time we meet. And thanks a lot to all those who were present today and will watch in the future the replay, if we can call it this way. We will say goodbye for now.
Thank you all for participating.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Good luck with your application.
And see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yes, bye.